A Plaguelands Media production.
Okay, so Luke here, Plaguelands Media, bringing you another book review for the channel. And today I'm talking about Clive Barker's Cabal. And I suppose the question that you might have once again is why? And the answer is that here at Plaguelands, I think it's fair to say that we are all Clive Barker fans. None more so than Ian Van Gammett, our resident artist extraordinaire, who has read, I'm sure, pretty much everything that Clive Barker has ever written, and then some. I've been a fan of Clive Barker since I was a kid. When I was a boy, you go over to your mate's place, and ineluctably, what you're going to do is you're going to watch some horror. You're going to watch a horror movie, and all the modern horror movie monsters, nobody comes close to Pinhead and the gang. Freddy, Jason, the Candyman. None of them were quite as cool as the Cenobites. The Pinhead and his posse were always just that little bit edgier, a little bit more malevolent, a little more evil, a little more perverse. And the reason for that is that, hey, they crawled out of Clive Barker's brain directly into the screen. So, that was a long time ago. But flash forward to the other day, and I'm talking to Ian, and I said, "What do you recommend? I want to read some more horror. As I've said before, I'm the least versed, so I'm trying to open myself up to some of the horror classics." And he says to me, "Have you ever read Cabal?" And I said, "No, no, no, I don't think so." And the temperature in the room dropped. And Ian, he's kind of a scary dude at the best of times, but he's sitting there. The eyes roll back in his head to just showing the whites. And I'm like, are you okay? Are you? And then I don't know if it was just in my imagination, but it seemed like the whole room sort of darkened, and the clouds outside started to gather. And I thought, I think he's putting some sort of curse on me. I left. I took off as fast as I could, and I don't know what happened, but ever since then, haven't been able to go to the toilet properly. So maybe it was a curse that he put on me. I'm not sure, but I'm hoping that if I review the book for the channel, maybe it'll lift. I don't know. That's what I'm hoping. So I'm going to get into it. So why don't you come along with me for the next episode of?
Read a fucking book, people.
Okay, so what the hell is Cabal about? It's not an easy one to explain. In fact, I've had to take some notes down because I'm sure I'm going to get lost along the way here. It's not a straightforward story. But essentially, one way you might look at it is that it's sort of the origin story of this character. That when we first meet him, he goes by the name of Boone, and he's a head case. He's completely deranged. In fact, when we first meet him, he's in the office of a shrink named Dr. Decker. Now, Dr. Decker is this hulking psychiatrist. And when in the opening scene, Dr. Decker is showing Boone these crime scene photographs of these horrendous murders. And they're freaking Boone right out, not just because they're gruesome, but because Dr. Decker is explaining to Boone that he thinks that he may have committed the crimes, that the patient is responsible for the murders. And, it's total bullshit because, spoilers, it turns out that, of course, the Dr. Decker is the true schizoid in the situation. He's the one that's going out. He's a psychiatrist by day, but by night, He goes by the alter ego Zipperface, who is a masked serial killer who goes around murdering people. And his intention is to frame Boone, to take all the responsibility for these murders so that he can get off scot-free, so that the doctor can get off scot-free. And this dastardly plan, might have worked, except for the fact that Boone, screwhead that he is, he not only is persuaded that he might have done these things and be unconscious of it, but he also can't. He's so grief-stricken and racked with guilt that he immediately runs out and he throws himself in front of a truck to expunge himself from this mortal coil. Only it must have been a small truck, because it hits him and doesn't kill him. And so he wakes up in a hospital bed, mildly mangled and convinced that any second now the cops are going to show up and arrest him for these multiple homicides he believes he may have committed. But in the ward, in the hospital ward, it turns out he's in there with a patient that's even more of a basket case than he is. This Looney Tune in the bed across from him, he's ranting and raving about some place called Midian. He's spitting all over the shop. He's got hooks instead of thumbs. And Boone's listening to this guy, and he's like, "What are you going on about, mate? What's this Midian place?" And the whack job, who has the goofy name Narcisse, he goes, Midian, it's this great place. It's a place for human monsters. It's a place where human monsters can abide, unharassed by civilized man. And Boone's like, okay. And then Narcisse starts cutting his own face off. And while this is going on, Boone is thinking, human monsters, sounds great. I might, maybe I'll just head over and move in. So while the nurses are trying to get Narcisse's face stuck back on, Boone he hightails it out of there. Luckily, very conveniently, Narcisse gave him directions on how to get to this mythical Midian place. So he takes off, and he goes on a bit of a road trip, and he finds Midian. And it turns out Midian is this sort of catacombs, this underground lair in this elaborate cemetery attached to a ghost town. But we don't actually get to see it at this point, because what happens, as soon as Boone sneaks into Midian, these two Midianites appear. And they call themselves the Nightbreed. And Boone, these two Nightbreeders, they go, "Who are you?" to Boone. And Boone's like, "Oh, it's all right. I'm one of you guys. I'm a monster man. I've recently been killing people." And the guy's like, "No, you haven't, you wanker. I can smell it on you. You're not a monster man. You're just meat. In fact, I'm going to turn into a lizard and I'm going to eat you." And which is really startling to Boone. I mean, he didn't think the monster part was literal, but it is. And this Nightbreed turns into a giant lizard, and he gives Boone the full Komodo. Just starts biting him. And the other guy is even shocked. He's like, "Wait, what are you doing, mate? You can't just eat this guy because he turned up. That's rude, mate. You can't do this." And he's like, "I don't care. I'm eating him. And so the guy starts eating Boone. But the other guy, for some reason, he's just like, "Nah, this isn't what we might be Nightbreed, but we're still decent hosts. You can't just do this." And so he pulls him off, and Boone, he manages to get away. He escapes, although he's got this gaping wound on him. And he takes off, and his legs are pumping, and he makes it over the fence and far away. But as he's getting away, he runs into Dr. Decker. And Dr. Decker's like, "Listen, Boone, I'm the real serial killer. You didn't do nothing. I've been framing you for it, and I've got the cops outside, and they're going to shoot you because I told him you got a gun. And Dr. Decker, he also has a gun. And Boone's like, oh my God, this is terrible. And they shoot him. And then the next thing you know, we jump out of Boone's perspective into Laurie. Now Laurie is this, she's a decent woman, not much of a looker, but she is absolutely head over heels in love with Boone because he's got a pretty face. And she's convinced, she's heard about what's happened to him, but she doesn't buy it. She's like, he might be a lunatic, but he's not a homicidal lunatic. My Boone wouldn't do that. So, but the cops tell her, yeah, sorry. Dr. Decker, he's like, sorry, but yeah, he really was a serial killer, and me and the cops had to kill him. And then someone stole his body from the morgue. And she's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. That's... They're like, yeah, sorry, nah, that's... Probably should... Don't ask any questions, that's just the way it goes sometimes. She's like, no, wait a minute. So she comes out to town, to Midian, to get some answers. And so she comes out and... she goes to Midian. She meets a friend, Cheryl, along the way, and they go to this cemetery. And what they discover is, at first they don't discover anything. They just wander around. And it's like and her friend Cheryl's like, "This is creepy. I want to go home." She's like, "Well, I don't know. I'm going back for one last look around the tombs." And she finds this wounded creature, and she helps it, but it turns out it's not just a wounded creature. It's actually one of the Nightbreed, a child named Babette. And she basically saves Babette because Babette wandered out into the light, which she's not supposed to do because the light's bad for Nightbreeds. Sometimes it just hurts them. Sometimes they just explode when they go out into it. So it's kind of vague. But anyway, so she saves Babette, and as a result, they become weirdly mind melded. So they can see through each other's eyes and whatever. But anyway, she takes Babette into Midian, and Babette's mum, Rachel, is there. He's like, oh, thanks very much. You've saved my daughter. I keep telling her not to go out into the light, but she doesn't listen, blah, blah, blah. And then Laurie's like, wait a minute, you freaks live down here in an underground catacombs in this abandoned cemetery? And Rachel's like, yeah, but, don't ask any questions about it, please. I'm a bit sensitive about it. And then Laurie's like, you know what, I got this weird feeling that you got Boone down here, so could you just tell me if you got Boone down here? She's like, look, I really can't talk about this. And then some other guy, he's like the mayor of Midian, I forget his name. He comes up and he's like, look, lady, we live down here in the shadows for a reason. We turn into creatures and shit, so just get out of here, please. And she reluctantly leaves and she goes back. But when she gets back to her friend, she discovers that Dr. Decker has slaughtered her friend Cheryl like a hog and is now attempting to murder Laurie. So Laurie's like, oh my God, and starts knocking over stuff and throwing things in his path because he's now taken on his alter ego of Zipperface. So it's pretty obvious what he is. And then through an elaborate series of chasey, she heads back to the cemetery, and Boone shows up and saves her. And Dr. Decker gets away. But in fact, it was all a ruse, and Dr. Decker wanted to chase Laurie until Boone made his appearance because Dr. Decker kind of suspected, or Zipperface, if you prefer, kind of suspected that Boone was still around, still alive, and wanted him to show his face. And now that Boone has rescued Laurie, the Midians, the Nightbreed, are all like, what are you thinking, man? We just took you in, and now you've broken our cardinal rule of not going out and saving people. So, you know what? You've been here less than 24 hours. Get the hell out of town. Us Nightbreeds don't appreciate this. And you can take your friend with the hook thumbs with you, because he's a dick as well. I don't know when the thumb guy arrived in Midian, but he did at some point. And he seems much more rational now, by the way. He's not spitting or anything. Anyway, so they throw those two out. And Boone's like, oh, Laurie, I've been thrown out of my new home, Midian. And I'm just going to come back to the hotel with you. And she's like, that sounds great. Me and you can go and have sex with each other. But then when they get back to the hotel, they find out that Dr. Decker has slaughtered everyone in the hotel and has set up and has told the cops about the bodies that he left behind in the motel in an attempt to once again frame poor Boone for the murders. But even weirder, when they get to the hotel, they find all the bodies of everyone in the entire hotel. Boone, he just starts eating the bodies. He just turns into a monster mash, and he just starts eating the corpses. And Laurie's like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And she runs away. And then all the cops turn up, and they find Boone with a whole bunch of dead people in his mouth. And they're like, well, you're a psychopath and a cannibal, so you're going to prison. And so then we get another perspective shift where we get to meet the local chief of police, Eigerman. Now, this sack of shit is just ridiculous. And Dr. Decker is pulling his strings, and he's like, look, Eigerman, you've arrested this serial killer Boone, corpse eater, but I got a feeling that if you go to Midian, you'll find a whole lot of other weird shit going on that you should also arrest. A whole bunch of freaks and geeks are under the ground there, and you should go and arrest them. And Eigerman's like, what the hell are you talking about? And Dr. Decker's like, just trust me. Just go down to the Midian cemetery place and start rounding up people. So Eigerman immediately rounds up a posse of deputies, sends them out there to the cemetery, and they start dragging people out into the sunlight and watching them explode. And then Eigerman's like, look, this shit is just too weird. I think I'm going to have to call up the local priest. So he gets on the blower and he calls up the priest, and he's like, listen, priest, you're a pervert who dresses up in ladies' clothes. So you better get down here and start exorcising demons. And the priest's like, what the hell are you talking about? And Eigerman's, look, I told you once, I told you twice. You're a cross-dresser and a freak. Now get down here and start helping me with these demons. And I got no time to explain anything further than that. So hurry up about it. So the priest comes out, and when the priest sees what's going on, he's appalled, and he's like, you're just exploding all these freaks in the sunlight. Maybe you should stop and think about this. But in the meantime, Laurie teams up with Hook Thumb, and for some reason, oh, that's right, Babette sent a telekinetic telegram to Hook Thumb and said, go and help Laurie. So he does. And he's got a face like boiled meat. And so Hook Thumb and Laurie, in one of the weirdest moments in a very strange book, they attack the police station because most of the cops have gone to the cemetery to help people explode, and they go into the cop shop and they start slashing the shit out of everybody, and then Laurie goes to the cells where Boone is being kept in awaiting something, awaiting trial. I don't know. And she says, "Oh, Boone, it's great to see you." And Hookman says, "Look, no time." He literally says to her, "No time for fucky fucky." And Laurie says, "Piss off." And then her and Boone have one of the most intense and passionate sex scenes I've ever read. And in fact, it's so amazing that I think I better quote the one of the climactic moments from that here, just so you can really get a flavour of what I'm talking about. So this is towards, they know they've got to hurry. It's a jailbreak. He said, "You don't have time for this." But Laurie's like, "Nah, no, we do." And they have this really long and elaborate sex scene, which culminates in this classic moment. Then it really began. After the promises, the proof. Bracing his upper back against the wall, he angled himself so as to throw his fuck up into her weight, its own insistence. She licked his face, he grinned. She spat in it. He laughed and spat back. "Yes," she said. "Yes, go on, yes." All she could manage was affirmations. Yes to his spittle. Yes to his cock. Yes to this life in death and joy in life in death forever and ever. And then Hook Thumbs comes in and starts watching. They finish up. And they're like, "All right, we should go and save all those guys exploding in Midian now." So they get in the car. They drive over to the war scene. Boone uses his new lizard monster powers to escape when the going gets rough. But when they get to Midian, he turns back into a man instead of a monster man. And all hell has broken loose there. They're pouring gasoline down into Midian. They're blowing people up. They're shooting everything that moves. The priest is trying to talk them out of it. And Eigerman, the chief of police, nearly blows the priest's brains out. But then Boone arrives to save the day. And he chases the cop away. Then he goes underground to try and save everybody. But at the same time, Midian is erupting. All hell is broken loose in a kind of literal sense, because Midian is crumbling apart, collapsing in on itself. The denizens of Midian are fleeing now that the darkness is arriving, because this siege has been going on for hours. And in the meantime, Dr. Decker once again turns into Zipperface and goes after Laurie. And he chases Laurie down into the collapsing Midian. Boone goes after him, and they have a final face-off in which Boone eats the shit out of him, turns into a lizard, starts biting the crap out of him. And then finds Laurie and a few other people wounded in the heart of Midian. And I should have mentioned this before, but the actual ruler of Midian is this god demon Baphomet, however you pronounce it. Either way, he's sort of this incandescent, chimeric, fiery, corpse-like entity. And Boone previously asked him if he could hang around, even though he broke the rules, and Bahamut was like, "No, you gotta take off." But this time, Bahamut says to him, "You know what, Boone? You really screwed us all over here, but I'm gonna baptize you. You're kind of in a state of animated undead, but I'm gonna transform you into something else, something like a redeemer for us, and you'll go on to become the new mayor of Midian, and you'll bring everybody back, under the protection of this place once you've rebuilt it somewhere else, or whatever." And then the war is over. Laurie disembowels herself so that Boone has no choice but to make her undead as well, so that they can go on this quest to resurrect the promised land of Midian once again, as sort of a Bonnie and Clyde, but they're dead, and they're undead. And so that's kind of it. Oh yeah, and in the ensuing carnage, the priest ends up insane after, he ends up in a coma and then wakes up, and he's just spouting out nonsense about Midian and monsters and Bahamut and Baphomet and all this other stuff, and he can smell God and all this kind of stuff. And the chief of police is like, okay, so I'm going to use me and the crazy priest are going to team up, and we're going to track these people down, and we're going to get revenge for everything that happened. But Laurie. Oh yeah, I forgot to say, Hook hands Dr. Decker cut his head off. So other than that, it's a happy ending because Laurie Babette is fine, and Laurie and Boone presumably get to live out the rest of eternity together, having undead intercourse. And that's it. That's pretty much it. So what did I think of this one? Well, I don't know. I mean, I love Barker. The guy's a whack job. But he always delivers. He always gives you what you want, if this is the sort of thing you want. Now, I've loved his work in the past. His short stories are always great. But to tell you the truth, this one was just, I don't mind authors making stuff up as they go along, and that's fine. And I don't know if that's what Barker was doing, but it just really felt like he was just pulling it out of his ass as we went through it. It wasn't really clear the rules of the Midian people, the Nightbreed. There was lots of conveniences. The Deus Ex Machina of Baphomet at the end there, just wrapping it all up with a nice little bow, and I don't know. I just there's a sort of certain claustrophobic element with Barker's writing, because everything is sort of captured in the prism of this demented psychology. Not the authors. I mean the characters. You sort of there's not much of a sense of the world in which this is taking place. And I think that was especially true with Midian itself. It would have been much... I mean, maybe it would have been a little more satisfying for me to get a little bit more of Midian itself as a place, as an alternative world. I mean, if you think of... At least when I think of the Cenobites and Hellraiser and the Hellbound Heart, one of the things that's so great about it is the wealth of lore in those stories, even in the films, and I just felt like there wasn't enough stability in that alternate Midian Nightbreed world for me to really get a sense of it. I wasn't even sure what they were turning into half the time, or what the rules of their supernatural capacities were. But for a sort of sadomasochistic romanticist, there's none better. And every now and then there were some lines that just cracked me up. My favorite, I think, I've got it noted down here, it's between these two. So from Boone's perspective, there was this opening passage: the sun rose like a stripper, keeping its glory well covered by cloud, till it seemed there be no show at all, then casting off its rags one by one. Now, that's funny, right? I don't know whether strippers, do they wear rags? That's not really the point. It's just that classic over-the-top kind of imagery. But I think for sheer, what would you say, vulgar entertainment value, this line from Eigenmann is hard to beat. Eigenmann hadn't admitted the suspicion to himself until now, sitting on the crapper. But it was as plain as his dick once he thought about it. Now, to me, that's exactly the sort of thing that I want out of Clive Barker narration. Now, I know that's not what his specialty is. His specialty is kind of the perverse romance of vivisections and bloody executions and demonic, supernatural, sadomasochistic forces coming to life in the pages of his stories. But I think he's got a great sense of humor too. At least I believe that that's what that is evidence of. So yeah, that's my review. I feel better already. So perhaps I have achieved something. The curse, I hope, is lifted. So I might go and relieve myself, and I'll call it a day. But my final advice, my admonishment to everyone watching is, you know what you can do. Go read a fucking book, people.